Hey friends, it's Seth from TRAWL and TrawlCast. I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say it's been a tough couple of days with the loss of the amazing Taylor Hawkins. Foo Fighters are forever an inspiration to me as a musician and to our band. Actually, the first time we ever got together in a room, we had put together this list of cover songs that we wanted to learn as kind of a statement of purpose for the band. You know, we didn't really know where the band was going yet, but we knew here are all songs that we have in common. I know My Hero was on the list, Monkey Wrench was on the list, and I believe Bridge Burning. Around that same time, my wife and I actually got to see the Foo Fighters for the first time at Fenway Park in Boston. I believe it was in 2018 when they were on the Concrete and Gold tour. We were just absolutely blown away by their energy and synergy, and especially Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins. You can just tell are kindred spirits. One of the best shows I've literally ever seen. Definitely in the top three, I think, for forever for shows I've ever seen. My wife and I actually cried during My Hero just because it's such a great song, and I'm sure I don't have to explain it to you guys, but they're just one of the best live bands in the entire world. During that show, it was awesome to see Taylor and Dave actually switch places for a song, and Dave went back and played drums. Taylor came up and sang. You can tell that they're just having a blast up there, and that like they really play for the fans. That's abundantly clear, and it was just so cool to be able to see that live. I felt like I was watching history. You know, when you think about the classic acts from the 60s and 70s, like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, and, you know, as a child of the 80s and 90s, I didn't get to see those bands live, but the Foo Fighters are that band to our generation. My heart goes out to all the Foo Fighters family and Taylor's family, and everybody who knew him personally. It's just such a tragic loss. And I actually wanted to share an interesting story about a time that I met somebody who knew Taylor personally and grew up with him, which was totally unexpected and really neat, honestly. So I had taken my wife on a trip to Salem, Massachusetts for her 30th birthday, and I surprised her with a couples massage. I had this whole fun day planned of just kind of like seeing all the cool sights in Salem and taking her for this like nice relaxing massage. And we walk in, and I was actually wearing a Foo Fighter shirt. I was wearing the Frankenstein shirt that was the tour poster from when they played Ryman Auditorium on like Halloween night. And this massage therapist walked up to me and she said, "Oh, that's Taylor's band." And I was like, "Yeah, Taylor Hawkins?" And she's like, "Yeah, Taylor's band." And I'm like, "Okay, do you know Taylor Hawkins?" And she said, "Yeah, I actually grew up with him, and he lived with me in California growing up. And, you know, we got to see him get the opportunity to play with Alanis Morissette, and we were also proud of him. And for the entire hour, my wife and I were getting our couples massage. You know, my wife's right next to me with her massage therapist. This lady was telling us about, you know, all these stories about Taylor and how he's just the salt of the earth, nicest guy, and, you know, that they were so proud of him when he, you know, got the gig with Alanis, and then he got the gig with the Foo Fighters, and just, you know, the few times they've connected over the years. And it was like really funny because the other massage therapist was super annoyed because it was supposed to be this quiet kind of like ambient, you know, lighting, ambient music, like experience. And we were just like talking about bands and talking about Taylor the whole time. So, but we had a blast because it was cool to meet somebody who knew him personally, and it just kind of also solidified how awesome of a guy he clearly was. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care of yourselves out there. Hope to talk to you soon.
You're listening to TrawlCast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to TrawlCast. My name is Seth McClone.
I'm Sean Matthews.
We've got a fun episode for you guys queued up this week. We are planning to hit our Now Spinning segment, which is our recurring segment on the show where we talk about the music we've been listening to lately and our thoughts on some new or old albums, basically anything we've been listening to lately. Then we're going to switch gears a bit and talk about some other types of media we've been checking out lately, like TV and movies, maybe even comic books.
Yeah, so this is the 40th episode of TrawlCast. So no guest. It's just Seth and I going back old school to just us talking and sound like dumbasses. But, it's what we do and what we do best. I think the big thing to talk about right off the bat, Seth, is the Red Hot Chili Peppers just released a new album. Seth, you've actually listened to it. I've turned it on and then had to have it in the background where I couldn't actually listen to it, but it's been there, and I've played it at least 3 times.
Yeah.
And I've only actually heard the one song, like the first song on it. So let's talk about the Red Hot Chili Peppers' new album, Unlimited Love.
I'm so excited about this album. For me, like this year, this was like one of the most anticipated albums for me. Before we even get into it, like the artwork, I just want to talk about that first because like
For sure.
I love the concept of like the neon sign, and they actually created that neon sign, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And the title, Unlimited Love, I just love it. It's just, almost feels like it's for the fans. You know what I mean? Like unlimited love. I got unlimited love for you guys, or for the band themselves. I think this late in their career, I just think it's a cool, just like statement, timeless kind of. I think that's the word,
Right.
timeless. It feels like that could be. It's not really of an era or of a moment. It feels like 30, 40 years from now, Unlimited Love still plays like it would today, or if it was, back in the mid 80s or mid 90s, so.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, that's a solid title for an album that I don't think if anyone else came out with that album title, I'd feel the same way about it.
Yeah.
Like if
Slipknot.
I don't know if Slipknot that would work for them, but if John Mayer came out with that, I don't think it would feel the same as Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like they have, this vibe about them, and I got to watch them. Jimmy Kimmel, hosted by Jimmy Fallon, the April Fool's show. I saw their performance on top of, I think it was the Roosevelt Hotel in California.
It was. Yeah.
They put on a great performance. They don't, look like they should retire. Like they look like they still have, mountains of energy to do this.
They do. They've got a lot of fight in them. I think they played These Are the Ways, which is this.
I think that was it, yeah.
It's a cool song because it like starts kind of dreamy and then it gets like real punky and like anthematic, like real quick.
Kind of throwing it back to their roots a little bit there,
And my favorite part of that was Chad Smith, like near the end. He was like, he really gets like insane. Like at the end, there's like a really fast part, and a fucking drumstick like flies over the back of the Roosevelt Hotel, and I'm like, I hope someone just didn't get hit in the head with a.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh no, somebody's down there, like somebody's walking their dog, and the dog just got a friggin' Chad stick to the friggin' face or something. I was like, oh god. One thing I did notice too, though, for that performance, we're recording this post Taylor Hawkins passing, was the drum head that he had was a bird with Taylor in it, and I thought that was literally one of the coolest tributes to a musician who's passed I could think of in a long time.
Yeah, that was very cool, and just awesome of Chad to recognize him that way. I actually watched because Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon did the
The
reverse
swapperoo.
April Fool's Day. So they were also on Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show, but Jimmy Kimmel hosted
Hosted by
it.
Jimmy Kimmel, yeah.
And he had I think it was the Red Hot Chili Peppers asterisk, but it said Taylor in the middle. And I was like,
Right, yeah.
that's really cool. And getting into the songs,
Yeah, let's get into the songs.
um, 17 song album. It actually, for being 17 songs, it's only an hour and 13 minutes. So you'd think that like 17 songs would be like, geez, like crazy amount of time, but it actually feels pretty quick.
Yeah.
Um, John Frusciante's back for the first time since Stadium Arcadium, which was like 16 years ago now. So
Yep.
this is John's first record in 16 years. Right off the bat, Black Summer,
Mhm.
that was the first single, and it's such an awesome song.
It's the only song that I've actually been able to listen to, yeah, so it's an amazing song.
Yeah. What I noticed right away about this record and first about this song is that it's got this really cool like singularity to it where you're really hearing four guys, and it just feels like refreshing to me because it's like kind of pure. And modern rock these days is like so many layers, so much, like you feel like there's like a competitive loudness tournament and everyone's trying to add more and more and more and more.
Right.
And you kind of forget that like a good song played well by four dudes doesn't have to have a million double tracks, backing tracks, sounds here and there. Like I love all that stuff. I fucking love production. I love like the art of making records, the art of just
Yeah.
listening. But at the same time, how refreshing is it to almost hear it, almost like you'd hear a band in, maybe the 70s. Um, Literally just four dudes captured in a room. I did look into the process a little bit, and I listened to Flea was on Mark Maron's podcast. I think it's actually called the What the Fuck Podcast. And
They
he
stole
was
that from
saying,
us.
yeah, he was saying that like they tracked it all together in a room. They did overdubs later, but
Right.
all the kids in the pool, all in a room, playing together and getting the vibe, recorded it to tape, and then they did some overdubs later. But like they did takes as cleanly as they could, and if they had to play it 10 times, they did. But like just really paid attention to arrangements and really paid attention to all of that. And I just thought it was cool because Rick Rubin produced it. He's awesome, and just the simplicity felt like it was there, and it was just refreshing.
Hearing that first song kick in, the way it starts, and then like you were saying, the production and how they built the song was really nice. Like I feel like a lot of times if you've done a song or an album and you're 5, 6, 7 albums deep, you can kind of get into a rut where you may or may not write the exact same thing, like structure wise, not necessarily musically, but it's still like verse, chorus, pre bridge, post bridge, verse, chorus, outro, that kind of scenario. And it feels like they tried some new stuff and kind of
Definitely.
got a feel for themselves again. Like they haven't been a band collectively for a few years now,
Yeah, they
you
put
know.
out The Getaway in 2016, which was, it's been a minute.
Yep.
And that one was The Getaway was done with Danger Mouse, which is a producer that is totally different than like what they would do
Right.
with with Rick Rubin. And they talk about it a little bit, but like it's a whole different process. He's more about more layers and more textures and kind of the vibe of things. But like, yeah, just a really cool, almost like return to form for them, I think.
I'm gonna listen to the album. I swear to God, ladies and gentlemen, it's just been such a pain in the ass with work and other things that I'd
Yeah,
put it on. And I was saying to Seth before we started recording, I put it on, I got through the first song, the second song started, and I had a gentleman come into my office and start asking me some questions about some stuff, and I ended up having it on, but I was talking and moving around, and it played, and then by the time I finally got back to my desk in my office, it was back on the first song again, so I was like, "Oh my god, I've got to listen to this album."
That's all right. I actually went down through all 17 songs. I made like a couple of notes about every single song
Perfect. Well,
just
let's
because on
talk
that.
about some.
All right, so I'll talk about a few of my favorites. So Aquatic Mouth Dance, track 3.
Sounds
Um,
kinky, okay.
it's my current favorite. It's got a great funky bass line that like is there throughout that kind of carries the song. And what's kind of cool is like mostly when you think of Flea, you're like, okay, Flea's gonna play slap. Right here, he's playing like a groove bass line, but it's not a slap line. Like it's almost as if you were hearing Motown, but the bass was turned up. It's just like deep pocket groove, but not necessarily slap. And there is a difference because there's funk grooving in like a funk rock setting that isn't necessarily slap. Like there's definitely like this huge differentiation. And I think it's more, you know, I'm gonna say like, Motown versus like um the 70s funk like Brothers Johnson or like
Right,
I'm thinking of like Larry Graham and stuff like that for sure is like, putting the the funk bass in the forefront. But I like on a
right.
lot of the songs on this record, you're almost getting more of a 70s, 60s, 70s bass groove from Flea, and I almost think it was intentional.
Huh.
This one, Flea plays a trumpet. He's been playing trumpet his whole life. His dad was a jazz guy, and
Nice.
he played trumpet on like the Mars Volta record, the first one, and he played
Yeah,
trumpet on a few other things. But he's almost playing like this New Orleans jazz trumpet thing at the end, which is really cool. Let's see, couple other tracks. These are the ways we talked about. That one's really cool. Kind of starts dreamy, and that was the one they played on the Roosevelt Hotel roof.
yep.
That one's cool.
And that was really like, that performance again, like, I'll go back to that. They put on a hell of a show. Their energy was friggin' top notch, and just
Yeah,
seeing the band back together again, doing that live. I say live, I watched a recording of it, but seeing them get back into that, it looked like they hadn't missed a step together. Like, they truly still meshed and melded, and it was just awesome. The song sounded great. It
yeah,
starts off very ethereal, very kinda spooky in a sense, and then it gets punk and rock, like, in the middle, like, all of a sudden out of nowhere, and you're like, "What the hell?" And then it switches back again. You're like,
yeah.
okay.
There's some
I'll get
really
into it."
like what the other thing I noticed in like contrast to a band like us, like being like I would consider us still a new band. Like when
Yeah,
you look at a band like Red Hot Chili Peppers and the depth of their catalog, like you can be a lot of things on a 17 song record. Where we've only got a few released songs in the grand scheme of things.
right.
You're sort of defined by what you've released, and you can be a very diverse band with a 17 song record because like I hear stuff on here that reminds me of, you know, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, Pink
Right.
Floyd. I'm hearing 70s funk. I'm hearing New Orleans jazz. I'm hearing, uh, you know, like Roger Waters type stuff. I'm hearing um, stuff that sounds like Latin stuff. The breadth of like what they do is pretty amazing. Let's see. I'm trying to think of another one.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So Black Summer, Aquatic Mouth Dance, and I think These Other Ways are my three favorites so far. Um, Bastard of Light is pretty cool.
Right.
Veronica is cool. That one switches from like a 4/4 to a 3/4 time, which is neat. Yeah, I don't want to.
That's in our geek realm. We like those oddball time changes and stuff like that. That hearing
Yeah.
that makes me definitely want to search that song out in particular, because being musicians, you like to hear different things, instead of the same
Yeah.
4/4 and four notes.
But shortly before I listened to this one, I went back and listened to a couple other older albums, Stadium Arcadium, which was another really, really long record. And I mean, they really did a good job like differentiating this stuff from
Right.
anything else they've done before. And like if I took like a helicopter view back from this, even hearing all those different things that I was talking about, I get like this really 70s vibe. It almost feels like that to
Mm.
me, and which is neat. I mean, there's a lot of things that would contrast that, like some guitar effects that you wouldn't hear
Right.
in the 70s
Yeah.
or like, but overall, like cool, cohesive record. It did not disappoint. I'm a fan. I just picked up the vinyl at Bull Moose. Last cool thing. So Rick Rubin also has a podcast. I don't know if you knew this, but
Okay. Yeah.
I listened to it. It's called the Broken Record Podcast. And over the next month, he's having each of them on his podcast individually, all four of them, and gonna do like a deep dive with each of them on,
Okay.
career,
Nice.
just talking to them. And if you've ever heard Rick Rubin talk for any length of time, he's got this like he's like very zen. He's very thoughtful. He's got this like super great tone to his voice. He's like I could literally like drink a glass of milk and just go to sleep listening to like Rick Rubin talk about music because he's got like such a pleasing voice to listen to. So
The soothing sounds
um
of Rick Rubin.
yeah. So anyways, I would recommend they just put up the John Frusciante one.
Very
I'm gonna
nice.
listen to it like later tonight, but then they're gonna put up the rest of them. So anyway,
Oh, very nice.
um Red Hot Chili Peppers, Unlimited Love. If you haven't heard it, go buy it. You won't be disappointed.
So
It's a
thumbs
great
up from
record.
the TrawlCast. Yeah. Tomorrow I have a long drive for myself for work, and I will be putting that album on and using the um, hour plus to get through the 4 hours of driving I have to do. So I am excited to sit down and be able to rip through that a couple times, and maybe I'll come back to it again later and we can actually have a more in-depth conversation. But you know,
It's all good, man. All good. Yeah, it just came out Friday, so it's only been out a
yeah,
few days. So yeah, I'm just a maniac. So
fuckers.
how about you, Sean? What else have you been listening to spinning lately?
So about a week ago, Life of Agony announced some makeup dates because they had a tour in like the Northeast region that I want to say one of the members got COVID or got sick. I don't know if it was COVID or not. So don't quote me on that. But I know one of the members had to back away from the tour so they couldn't continue. And they posted some makeup dates. And one of them happens to be in our very own Portland, Maine, Geno's.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm stoked about that. Anyone who knows me knows I love Life of Agony. And I actually jumped back into some of their catalog, and
nice.
their first 3 albums, I'm very well versed in. I can, take those any day of the week. I can rip through them. I know almost all the lyrics. I know all the songs. Their newer stuff, I haven't quite gotten to the same level as the original 3 albums. So I went back and I started ripping through The Sound of Scars. It's their most recent release,
Nice.
and it's a from the way I perceive this album is it's kind of a reply or a epilogue to River Runs Red, their very first release, because some of their non-musical tracks are kind of what happens after the events of the tracks that occur on River Runs Red.
Cool.
And if you haven't listened to that album, River Runs Red, then you're a psychopath and I can't trust you. So go listen to it and then I'll trust you. Um,
I have listened. I do have it.
yeah, I was say
Also,
it's
yeah.
and I think The Sound of Scars is kind of like the epilogue to what has occurred in the River Runs Red story. And it's just a great album. It's 14 tracks, only 41 minutes. So you were saying 17 tracks for like an hour and 15, I believe.
Yeah.
like three less tracks, and they're almost, a half hour shorter, but it's also, Life of Agony. They don't need a 5, 6, 7 minute long song to put on a hell of a song and show. And honestly, like, the Sound of Scars, you know, for the 41 minutes you're listening to the album, it's a rager. Like, it starts off with another kind of famous styling of theirs where they go into, again, like the epilogue of River Runs Red. The prelude is the first track, and it's not even a song. It's just kind of the events that occurred after. I think it's the track Friday off of River Runs Red. I I, I could be wrong, but there's a
Yep.
non-music track on that
I
this
think you're
is
right.
like the afterthought, like the what happens there. This is a few minutes afterwards, and you know, it definitely is interesting to hear them conclude a story so many years later. I mean, geez, that album came out in like 94, 93, I believe,
Yeah,
and
it is cool when
it's
bands do that, like create like the sequel to, um, or at least continue the story, even if it's not like a
yeah.
direct correlation, if done right. Yeah,
But, they kick in with Scars. Blackheart, I feel, is one of the better tracks off the album just because musically, sonically, you can hear how much power and energy these four people have together. Mina's vocals are unbelievable. Joey Z on guitar, his guitar tone and the way he plays, it makes me wish I had grown up near them to be able to learn exactly at the same time with him, like, how to play guitar, because I just love his style, his tone, like,
yeah,
what he plays is, I'm sure other people can do it, but when he plays it, it just sounds so amazing and fulfilling, to me.
yeah,
Um, the Victoria on the drums is she's the newest member, and she just turns it up to 15. Like, she's unbelievable on the drum kit, and watching videos for the last few years of her playing and warming up and stuff, she is in love with playing drums, and it shows how much she wants to play drums. Like, she's just insane. Um, it, it
very cool. Yeah, I haven't really followed in the past few years, to be honest, and I need to like brush up on, where they're at. So, I'd love to check out that show at Gino's. I'm not sure if you have tickets yet, but
I do
it'd be
have
cool.
tickets. That is definitely one
Nice.
of my, my things. I gotta I have to. If Life of Agony is playing in, you know, my town, I have to.
It's like the bat signal. It's
Yeah.
like the Life of Agony, symbol reflecting off the moon. You're like, all right, I gotta go. Fuck it.
I mean, I
Go.
do have their logo tattooed on my leg. It's hard to say no to going and seeing them. I've seen them. I think they're honestly the band I've seen the most in my life. And that's saying something, because when I started to see them play, it wasn't even the original lineup. It was, Whitfield Crane from Ugly Kid Joe. He
Oh
was
yeah,
the singer the first time I ever saw them. So it wasn't even like the original lineup. It just, and it didn't quite have the same, I don't know, feel. It worked, but, Mina, she just, her voice is everything for Life of Agony, and the energy and the stage performance that they all put on together is absolutely stunning.
yeah,
And I know that they just had, like I said, they announced this, kind of makeup dates, and it's really cool that they're coming to Maine. Also coming to Geno's, which I feel like that's a wrong decision for them. I think they should be on, Aura or the State Theater. Like, they're a big band. They should be playing the big stages, but instead they're coming to some little tiny hole in the wall rock club,
Yeah. The
and
only
that's
one
awesome.
It is cool. The only one time I did see them was at the State Theater,
Mm.
probably early 2000s. I saw them. There was this big tour in town. It was like Megadeth, Dream Theater, like
Oh yeah,
Fear
because
Factory.
they
Uh,
had two. They played the Civic Center and the
And
State Theater. It was a dual.
it was a dual show.
Yeah, I
And I
remember
remember,
that.
so I watched like the big bands, the big ticket, and
Mhm.
then walked down to the State Theater and saw like Dry Kill Logic and
Yep.
Life of Agony and a couple others.
I
Yeah,
that
that
was
that
one of the
was
few shows I missed when they were in my home state, and I have no idea why. I can't remember that far back.
it was though. It was like I'm gonna say like 2002, 2003, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it was a long time
I
ago,
may
but
have been in a different state of mind at that point, and that's probably why I didn't go, so but, I mean, them coming to such a small venue, it's intimate, it's gonna be so much fun. I if y'all get a chance and you haven't done so, you wanna see a real rock and roll band, a real metal band, like, Rolling Stones called River Runs Red one of the greatest metal albums of all time, I believe, and if you wanna see why, get to Gino's. Like, it's May 27th, I believe is the date, and you'll see why. Life of Agony puts on the best show ever, period. It's hard to deny any of that.
nice.
So, yeah, and that's what I've been listening to. I mean, I have yet to watch the, Sound of Scars, documentary that they put out. It doesn't have anything to do with, like, making of the Sound of Scars album, um, but the documentary, it fascinates me because it it kinda goes through their early years, getting through, like, substance abuse, physical abuse,
Wow.
um, crazy shit, and it gets goes through, like, Mina's, transformation from, she was Keith Caputo, now she's Mina Caputo,
Yeah.
um, and I know it won or I don't know if it's a win, but I don't know what it's called, but it's a BFI Flair London LGBTQIA plus film festival official selection from this year.
Oh, cool.
Just because it went through her transformation from Keith to Mina and all that stuff. And I think it ends up like right around the time they're doing the Sound of Scars album. So maybe that's why they got the name of that. But it's I've heard it's an amazing documentary. I know it's out pretty much on all the major digital platforms. So if you get a chance and or if you've seen it, let me know, ladies and gentlemen, if what it's like because I'm very thoroughly interested. I just haven't had the time or chance to get to watch it.
Nice. Cool.
So yeah, that's one more. You got another one of your now spinning, Seth, or have you
I got
just been chili peppering it up?
I've been chili peppering it up. I got
Nice.
basically some singles like
Oh,
that I've been
nice.
checking out.
Okay.
So I might do like a little rapid fire,
Yeah. Let's do
just
the rapid
some
fire. What do you got?
well actually there's one album that's I know me and you both were digging. The Kings and Liars album is great.
Yep. Yep.
If you haven't checked it out, Kings and Liars, I believe they're from like aren't
They're
they
from
from
Connecticut.
Connecticut?
Yeah.
Awesome band. That record is really solid. Let's see. Tool actually released a reimagined version of Opiate, which was the last track on their Opiate EP that came out in like
Yep.
1992. It's like an 11 or 12-minute reimagined version of that song. Killer, brings it to some new places. Cool to hear it with some modern production where Opiate, for the time being and what it was,
Right.
I love that, and it has grit and it has grime and feel for days, but it does lack in production a little bit. So awesome to hear it with like the modern take on it. This single from Port Noir called Deep Waters. One that I just randomly
Mm.
found. Actually, the guys from the Itch podcast um, make a playlist every week
Oh, yep.
of all the latest stuff coming out, and I follow that playlist. It's actually around the time we put out Kaiju King because they put us on their playlist.
Oh yeah.
which is
Thanks,
really
boys. We
cool.
appreciate that.
Yes, and thank you guys very much for doing that. So we released our song, I think, on the same day as that one. Deep Waters by Port Noir is really cool.
Very nice.
Um, and then let's see, New Crowbot. Um,
Hmm.
they have a song called Better Times out. They've got a new album coming out soon. I love that band. They're just a cool, fun band. They don't take themselves like too seriously. Like every time they put out a video, it's freaking hilarious, and they're just like, just a really fun band. Like that's one band that, like, if they ever came through town and we got the opportunity to open up, I would just be like ecstatic, man. And just a cool band. And then let's see, this record from, okay, so I believe it was also last week or the week before, Dave Grohl dropped the Dream Widow album. I'm
Yes.
not sure if you've heard this yet, but
I haven't, but I again, I've been meaning to.
check out the song. It's like the first single, and I think it's also the first song on the album. It's called Cold.
Yeah.
Um, rips, absolutely rips. It just makes you think like, shit, like, dude, Dave Grohl can do anything because, he can obviously, from Nirvana to the Foo Fighters to all of his side projects. He was in Queens. He did,
Right.
a bunch of side projects here and there, but this one's definitely metal. Very doomy. Just it's awesome. And I know that it's I think it's I haven't watched it yet, but Studio 666, the movie that they released
Yeah.
somewhat recently, the band from the movie. So excited to listen to the rest of the record, but Cold
Yeah.
is really good. And then Royal Blood came out with a new one, Honey Brains, which was also pretty good. It's
Nice.
funny because we were just talking about Royal Blood like not too long ago. I can't remember who we were
Yeah.
talking with them about, maybe the
Audio slave.
Patio Slave
Yeah.
guys. Like the next day, they put out a new single. So I
Boom.
was like,
Yep.
sweet. So that's a little rapid fire, just some stuff I've been listening to
So
lately.
uh, get to add on to that rapid fire. So
Yeah,
I've been so we got hit up. Trawl as a band got hit up by this band called Prawn out of Rochester, New York.
yeah,
What an interesting, like, I was taken aback. Like, they hit us up. They're really nice guys. They're a five-piece out of Rochester, New York. Um, and I've been checking out some of their stuff on, Spotify, wherever I can find it on Facebook and stuff. They have almost like if Tool was a little bit younger and had a couple different influences, I feel like that's where they're at, like their sound, and some
yeah,
of their stuff's really cool. I've been, excuse me, really enjoying like listening to some of their tracks, and they've been super nice to us. Like they always hit us up on our social medias and when we share stuff, and I've been enjoying the song Barren. It's one of their singles
nice.
that they released. They also released an album last year called Sulfur. Um, I think Baron's great. It's got some cool stuff on there. They have another song called "Fuck 'Em," which I mean, quality right there. And
Yeah,
again, it's a great. They have some good stuff. So if you're out there and you're looking for some new music, Seth listed off a bunch of them. I'll give you Prawn, Praun, out of Rochester, New York. Super nice guys. They You know, I can definitely see trawl and prawn, especially with some of their artwork and stuff. It's very oceanic
yeah.
in a sense.
They're like our
Um,
alter ego New York twin band, sort
yeah,
of
they're
like
the heavier
yeah,
version of trawl. So
yeah. They would have, if we were like, they would have like the evil mustache if we were like
yes,
facing out. They would be the ones with the evil mustache. But
but
yeah,
yeah,
no,
I mean, if you get a chance, check them out, people. Like seriously, do they're great. Good stuff. I love the vocals. The guitars sound great. Bass and drums, mesh very well. And they've been super nice to us. We enjoyed talking back and forth on the Instagram messages and stuff like that with them. And I'm hoping we can get a chance to kind of hook up with these guys. They seem really cool and they seem excited about playing a show with us. And I know Seth and I have talked about them, in practices and recordings. Um, but they seem like good guys, and we'd like to get a chance to rock with them because it'd just be fun, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. We've been talking back and forth about how to make something work. So we might
Yeah,
end up heading out to New York, or they might head meet us halfway, or we're trying to figure something out. But we'll do it. It'll
we're
happen.
definitely gonna figure something out. So if you're
Yeah,
listening, Prawn, we're digging you guys, and we wanna definitely hook up with y'all because it seems like it needs to happen.
absolutely.
So that's one of my quick fires. Another not so quick fire, but longer listen is I jumped back and have been listening to 36 Crazy Fists, a Snow-Capped Romance album again.
Yes, nice.
Um,
I love that album.
just a great album.
Yeah,
A big fan of all their stuff. Alaskan band, which I don't think I can name more than isn't Jewel from there too?
yeah, yeah, and yeah, I believe so. I mean, there isn't many really.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Um,
hard up there. It's
yeah,
literally you're almost fully disconnected from the United States, but you're part of the United States and you're basically frozen
yeah.
300 out of 365 days. So
The only other band that's guys I actually knew that played out there is Gristle Stick. They
mm,
were a local band from Maine. I know the lead singer and ukulele player, Ukulele Russ, is still out there playing. He's super charismatic, super awesome. They used to actually. I went to high school with their old bass player and guitar player. They
nice.
switched off at one point, but Tom Stevens. I went to high school with them, and what they would do is they would like rent a school bus and drive out there and like
Jeez.
play during their summer and our like winter, and then they would like switch, kind of like switch off during seasons. And
Yeah,
it got to the point where like literally every year they were just like headed to Alaska for like months, and they would play out there. And apparently they treat you like super good because like there isn't a lot of bands that play in Alaska. So
right.
yeah,
Kind of like I've heard some of the people mention like Northern Maine's kind of like that, where they don't really have a lot of activities in a different sense of like they do have activities, but they don't have a lot of bands come way up north like Presque Isle and Fort Kent and all that stuff.
yeah.
So I've heard if you go up there, they treat you really well and they support you harder than you could ever imagine being supported. So I'm interested in both, Alaska and Northern Maine, trying to get to both those places to play shows because I think it'll be fun.
Northern Maine would be way easier because it's in our
Yeah,
state, but it's
that's
like
only
it.
a few hours drive instead of a few days drive, but tours can happen,
Yeah,
maybe, hopefully someday.
yeah, definitely. But
But no, Snowcap Romance, that album, it's the second release from 36 Crazy Fists. I love that album. I'm a huge fan of Destroy the Map. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. Just the vocals in that are stunning. So
yeah,
if you get a chance, go listen to that.
you were playing that for us the other day when we were
Yeah.
recording. Yeah, it's just a and I love. I kind of grew up on listening to. I think it was Bitterness the Star.
Bitterness the Star. Yep. It's the
Um,
first album.
Great record. Just you know that guy's the voice is very unique. The vibrato that he kind of has.
Well, have you heard their new
Um,
stuff?
I haven't heard their new stuff.
So their new stuff, he's gone basically pretty hard away from that,
Really?
from all the stuff I've listened to. Like it's more straight on metalcore instead of that weird, new metal mixed with metalcore kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Bitterness and Snowcap both have the same, feeling to them. And then some of their newer albums, it almost feels like they definitely embraced the metalcore harder
Mhm.
than, they did
And
in the past.
and there was a lot of time in between those albums. I know there was. I mean, I think
Yeah.
a decade or more. So definitely a lot of time and room for like other influences to seep in, and
Oh, for sure. Because
you know,
2002 was Bitterness the Star, 2003 was a Snowcap Romance, and then they took a few years, they got Rest Inside the Flames. So I'm actually doing this on Spotify, ladies and gentlemen, don't think I have this kind of knowledge in my head.
yep,
That was 2006. 2008, The Tide and Its Takers. That album I listened to, that one is definitely worth listening to, Seth. That one
nice.
you can hear kind of the maturity of the band kind of kicking in. there. I feel
Mhm.
like it's definitely it's different than Bitterness and 30 Snowcapped, but it's still them, and you can definitely feel like they've matured a lot, and maybe more finely honed their craft.
Nice.
Um, and then they go, a couple years later, Collisions and Castaways. 2014 was Time and Trauma, and then 2017 was an album called Lanterns. That was the last one they've released. I don't see any singles or anything else on here that it's newer, but yeah, 36 Crazy Fists. I've been a big fan of theirs for a long time,
Yeah.
long time, because I'm old as fuck.
You and me both, man.
So I think that's a good now spinning. Let us know what you've been listening to, ladies and gentlemen. We want to hear this. Hit us up in the comment section where you see this episode. We'd love to hear. And maybe you have something that we haven't listened to or haven't mentioned we should check out. Let us know. We can definitely do that and we'll add it into our rotations. And I promise I will listen to it. I won't just put it on and be like, yeah, I listened to it and it was at work and I didn't get anything done, or didn't listen to it. I definitely will listen to it, ladies and gentlemen. So let us know. We'd love to hear what you've been listening to and what we should check out.
This is Eric from Black Rabbit Holes, and you are listening to TrawlCast.
Let's talk about some of the TV shows and movies and such and YouTube videos, whatever we've been watching, as of lately, the last few weeks, because we
Yeah.
haven't really talked about movies and stuff for a bit. And, last guest we had on, TJ, had the movie podcast, and he kind of reignited a spark in me to go back and not necessarily watch some older stuff, but just get back to watching some movies and some TV shows. So, um, have you seen any new shows lately, or let's talk.
Yeah, sure. I haven't watched many movies lately. I've been like, you know, with doing all the stuff that we've been doing, like recording and the
Right?
podcast, and
Yeah.
been playing a lot of Magic actually. Haven't watched a lot of like actual movies, but I've been watching a lot of YouTube.
Uh huh.
There's some stuff on TV that I've been digging. Like one show that I've stuck to, and that's in its third season that I really like. It's one that's kind of off the beaten path that I think probably not
Okay.
as many people know about, but Snowpiercer.
Okay.
I don't know
I
if you've
I know
seen
there
the
was a movie about that. I think it was Chris Evans, like 2008,
maybe, yeah.
maybe.
I'm pretty sure the movie is not that good, but
Right.
the show, like from what I've people have said, like don't watch the
Right.
movie, it's not that good. But like the show is really interesting. So basically the premise is that like the second ice age is here, and um there's this
So it's
train.
it's Thursday, is what you're saying.
It's
Oh.
Thursday, yeah. So no, the like the second ice age is here, and there's only basically this sort of like genius engineer comes up with this idea to have a train that's like, I don't know, a couple hundred cars long, um, continuously moving. Like basically all the survivors get into this train that has been like they've been working on this for like a couple of years. It's kind of like a luxury train that everyone gets on, and all the survivors are just constantly moving. And literally, if they stop, they die. So they
They'll
have to.
freeze to death, right?
So it literally is always running, and the tracks run all the way around the world. So a little bit of a far fetched concept, like to begin with. But what's cool is that on the train, there's like all this. There's like first, second, and third class, and then there's the tail, which is kind of like the refugees who weren't actually supposed to get on the train but jumped on at the last minute. So there's all this like kind of classism and social struggle, and there's a really cool story. The One of the lead characters is David Diggs. He was in Hamilton, really great actor. Couple others. that are awesome. But just a cool show. It's in its third season. It's really captivating. There's a lot of just neat concepts. It gets a little like gritty and dark at times, but like
Right.
that's one that I've kept up with for a little
Where
while.
can you see that?
It's on TNT.
Okay.
It's on TNT, and it's also you can watch it. I think on like the Hulu. We usually watch it on like Hulu after the fact because usually we don't
On the Hulu,
we
yes.
don't watch live TV as much just
Right.
because like you kind of watch it whenever you have time to see it. But
Exactly.
but yeah. How about you,
Nice.
Sean?
Well, I'm actually gonna try to check that out because I'm sure that you can get like the seasons on like Vudu or Amazon Prime, something to that effect. So I'm definitely gonna check that out.
Yeah,
I have watched some movies recently. I've also back on March 30th, Disney Plus released the first episode of one of my, if not my favorite Marvel character,
nice.
Moon Knight.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I've been meaning
so
to watch that.
it's a 6 episode um, series based on the Moon Knight comic books, and I'm a huge Moon Knight fan. I've been in love with him since I was a little kid. I just remember he was the Marvel version of Batman, people called it, but
Yeah,
there's a big difference between Batman and Moon Knight, whereas Mark Spector is literally fucking insane, whereas Batman's just crazy, you know?
yeah.
Meh, whatever. But this series, the first episode came out this past or the 30th, which is a Wednesday, and I've watched it 3 times now. It's one
Wow.
episode. It's like 45 minutes long, and it is awesome. I feel like it's literally they have to make a second season of it based off the first. And I know there's a lot of people bombing it on the reviews and stuff, but
People bomb everything. I mean,
yeah,
is
I,
so
I
is it just the first episode or are there more
they've
up
yeah, they've only released the first episode. It's going to
first
be
episode?
every Wednesday for like 6 consecutive Wednesdays. So
Nice.
the next one's coming up this week. The night we're recording again, the bass and vocals for another song. We're going to be in the recording studio. They'll release the second episode, but the first episode, it definitely gets you started down the path of knowing and learning who um, Moon Knight is and Mark Spector is. It's interesting the story arc they're going with. They're not going with the normal Moon Knight story arc. So us hardcore geeks out there who know what I'm talking about will understand, but they're going more along the lines of a dissociative identity disorder, Mark Spector, instead of just a full blown insane uh, guy.
I see. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's all Egyptian mythology, which is fascinating and
that's cool.
awesome. I love the imagery they're using. The first episode, you get to see at least one Egyptian kind of monster, I guess is a good term, creature.
That's cool.
And unfortunately, the episode ends, in my opinion, way too early. Like I needed like 20 more minutes, like 20 more minutes, please.
Yeah,
But they do I think they do a really good job with it. Um, it's I see people bitching about the way they shot it, the camera angles and the camera. Yeah, who gives a crap? Just sit down, shut up, and watch it and have fun. Like,
seriously,
don't
like
take it too seriously.
well that and like how spoiled are we these days to
Right.
have all this accessibility. Like we would have when we were kids, like we would have killed for a comic book character show of any kind, pretty much. I mean, we
Hey,
had
they
like,
did have a
you
Captain
know,
America movie back in like I think it was like 1990 or
yeah,
1989, but the guy had fake ears on. Like I know about that because it was terrible. It was absolutely fucking
right.
horrible.
And
The
we
Dolph
had
Lundgren Punisher? Are you
Dolph
kidding me?
Lundgren,
I mean, I
Punisher.
love that movie.
That was like the first example that I remember
Yeah.
before Blade came out and changed the whole game.
Right.
Because Blade changed the game big time for Marvel
Mhm.
movies. That was like,
Mhm.
all right, now we need to make every Marvel movie at
I
that
think
same
at that
quality,
yeah, I think
you
at
know.
that point though, there was a turn in the tides of moviegoers. Like when we were kids, the 80s, the 90s, looking back at the movies that were coming out then, they had more of a 70s feel to them, whereas
Yeah.
like National Lampoons was huge in the 60s and 70s and even in the 80s, like National Lampoons. So like Family Vacation, Christmas Vacation, you know,
European Vacation.
Caddyshack,
Yeah.
like all those National Lampoon movies, you knew them and you laughed, and it was almost like that was kind of the catalyst for most of those movies and that time frame. Like if it wasn't funny or it needed to be this way. And I feel like when it came to Blade coming out, they said, you know what, the moviegoers of the world, the people who are more interested in going out to the movies, are these kids who are now adults or you know mid 30s, and their comic books were their lives when they were kids, because
Yeah.
we didn't live in the golden age of comic books where they had the original Batman, the original Supermans, like their
Right. All that stuff was
first
much
and second.
earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, but we came into the world and were listening to hair metal, but then we'd go to the comic book store and we'd pick up a Green Lantern, we'd pick up a
X-Men,
Avengers, X-Men.
Wolverine.
Yeah,
I
like,
mean,
it
for
was
me, that's what it was like. That 90s boom of
yeah.
comic
Well, and you had
fandom.
the X-Men cartoon was the 90s,
I
and
was
that
gonna
is
say
literally still one of the best cartoons for superheroes ever.
that was a really good cartoon. For I feel like I haven't watched it in many years, but like I feel like it probably holds up pretty well because they
Yeah,
like I remember the graphics were really good.
yeah, yeah.
It wasn't
I
super.
still remember the theme song. It's playing in my head right now,
Oh
that
yeah. Oh man, seriously, like yeah, I'll never forget that show. I mean, and I was obsessed with Wolverine. I was obsessed
Yep,
with the X-Men. I remember buying that stuff off the comic stand in, 93, 94, 95 when
right.
it was like,
Well,
coming out and
when you were a kid, here's a question for you. When you were a kid, you could go to a grocery store or a drugstore, what they used to call drugstore, CVS, Walgreens, and they had a rack near the
yeah,
register that
yes,
spun,
spinner rack,
spunneth, spinneth.
spinners.
It rotated, and you could look at all these different Marvel, DC, all these different comic books, and you could
Yeah,
grab one and, "Hey, mom, can I have $1.50?" And she'd be like, "Yeah, just throw it on the thing. We'll just get it." And you could get weird comic books, or you'd get your X-Men fix every week. Like, they don't really do that anymore. Like, you have to go to the magazine section, and there's like a Donald Duck comic book, a Mickey Mouse comic book, and like
you have to
some
go to a
weird.
specialty store
Yeah,
mostly.
you actually have to go to a comic book store to get the comic books now. But when we were kids, you had that gondola that you could just, they're out of the new X-Men, and then they'd be like, "Oh, no, we got some over here, like, we got a couple left." I'm like, "I'll take one," and you'd go do chores to pick up the new X-Men, and you'd go home, and Saturday morning, you'd sit down with your Cocoa Pebbles and your underwear and watch the cartoon,
Heck
eating,
yeah, man.
7 o'clock in the morning, you hear that friggin' X-Men theme song, you're out of bed, in your whitey tighties, and you're eating friggin'
Yeah.
Fruity Pebbles watching X-Men.
I also think too, like in general, like when you pick up Batman today, or when you
Mm,
pick up an X-Men comic today, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to because I'm not a kid anymore, but like I don't know if those are for kids anymore. I feel like the material got more cerebral and adult
right.
and
Yeah,
dark because I think that's part of it is like I think in the 90s comics were part of kind of the zeitgeist of kids, you know,
right.
like the action figures and the morning cartoon on Saturday mornings and but the content when you picked up the comic was a little bit more, I would say like 60s Batman, like smash, boom, pow, a little
Yeah,
bit less like dark. But then you had, I think, like later in the 90s, with like, Frank Miller and people like that, you got like
right.
Marvel Knights and you got like, the Punisher got really dark, and like Daredevil got really dark, and then
yeah.
so like I feel
There's
like
also something when it
part of
comes
it,
to that, the darkness that you're talking about, the almost over violent of comic nature. I think that started in that era for us, but nowadays comic books and especially like the DC, Marvel, whatever, IDW, Dark Horse, like all these comic book brands, you can get you can go onto your gaming console, like for instance, I have an Xbox One. If I turn it on, I can go play a Batman game and absolutely beat the shit out of bad guys. And it's
yeah,
if it wasn't like that, I probably wouldn't play it. And it's like, watching these movies they
true,
come out with, you know, the most recent um Marvel movie is Spider-Man: No Way Home.
yeah,
That compared to the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire is so much more. I actually said this to Kara the other day. We were watching this. It's so much more brutal than
yeah.
watching Tobey Maguire's kind of cutesy,
Campy
almost,
kind of.
yeah, campy Spider-Man.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So I think it's kind of this, if you want to call it an evolution, and there's like quotes around that because it's like, um, culturally, I think entertainment has shifted to this point where there's this expectation of excitement, and with the expectation of like the constant excitement comes more violence, more
Right.
explosions, more, you know, like
More Michael Bay. Oh.
more Michael, like everyone's got to put more Michael Bay in it, and I think like um, you know, there has to be some sort of point that we reach that, and I don't know if we will, where you kind of like reflect on that and go, okay, is this where it should be? And maybe
Right.
a new director comes out and takes a different angle with it. Like I've been saying for years that I want a cerebral Batman movie like Detective Batman in the comics,
Right. Okay, yep.
where he has to, he's got his inner monologue, and he's um, thinking about like how he feels about all the the stuff going on, and it's more of like a detective Sherlock Holmesian
Right.
movie than it is a you know
Uh,
Dark
punch
Knight
'em, smash
Return,
'em,
punch
yeah.
and smash 'em,
Well,
explosions,
that's
and
also going into the thought process of making Batman take on that actual moniker of the world's greatest detective, because not still, I mean, hey, we're old and we're nerds and we're definitely geeks. We know when somebody says the world's greatest detective. Like, my first thought is Batman and then Sherlock Holmes. Like, those
yeah.
2. That's it. End of story. And
But most of the world though, like the mainstream, if you said world's greatest detective, they would not know what you were even talking about because
right.
the movies do not celebrate that
No.
fact really.
They go to the
Um,
vigilante, the crime fighter. They go
yeah,
to the he doesn't necessarily have to use his mind so much as,
yeah, and
justice and
they always like promote like the whole like rich douchey kind of like, they
right,
always make him look a certain way, um, and I feel like they don't get enough into the human condition of things.
right.
I wrote an entire 25-page thesis for college
Holy shit.
about um, versus the human condition, and how in the comics you get to see all of the stages of kind of the human condition played out in comic books, from like if you look at the pyramid of hierarchical needs, you know thinking about what you need as a human being, everything from food to safety to
Human
recognition,
interaction and stuff like that, right. Yeah,
recognition, self, um, and then like self actualization is like the top of the pyramid. You can
right,
actually go through Batman and see, okay, here's this kid who, had like obviously he had a terrible upbringing, and by the way, they always, no matter what, they always do the origin story, and I hope someday that there can be a movie where they don't reference the origin story. You know what I
So
mean?
I believe this newest movie, The Batman, with Robert Pattinson, from what I have heard, they don't necessarily reference it so much. Like most Batman movies, they do. They have to do it because there's a new generation of fans. Well, no, there really isn't. There's the same generation, and we're kind of tired of. We know Joe Chill killed Batman's parent, Bruce, and you know Thomas, and you
Martha.
know Thomas
Yeah.
and Martha. Yeah, I was trying not to. I was trying to remember, but my brain wasn't functioning fully. But we know it. We grew up with Jack Nicholas, you know, dancing
Yeah.
with the devil in the pale moonlight.
Did
But
you hate a man with glasses?
but we know that story, and they're trying to, I get what they're doing, but they're just doing it incorrectly. And as going back to my point was, I've heard that this new movie, The Batman, is actually based on his second year of crime fighting. So he's already done a year of crime fighting. He's still trying to find himself.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, it does have the old ass whooping that you normally get from a Batman, but it also has a little more cerebral type stuff. So I don't know if you've seen the movie
I
yet. I
haven't,
haven't.
and
Yeah.
yeah, I haven't yet. I'm actually looking forward to seeing it, and
Mm,
I want to give Pat Bat a chance.
Pat.
Um, Pat Bat, because you had
You
Batfleck,
mean
you
you mean
had
Twilight?
Twilight, Pat Bat. I was like, we got to give him a chance. At
Yeah.
first, I was like, no. I was just like, no, don't do that. But I'm like,
I
okay, I gotta, listen. We all did stuff when we were younger, like that. Like when I was 19, I was an idiot, and you were in Twilight, so like I can
yeah.
forgive you. Like you go,
He was also in Harry Potter.
That's true. That's true. So yeah,
But I mean, I've heard
redeeming.
people literally say this movie is absolutely phenomenal, and it's like 3 hours long. So that's kind of I haven't reconditioned my bladder to sit in a movie theater for that long.
Yeah,
So, but I know it's supposed to be coming out. I want to say sometime in April on like HBO Max, and
cool.
I'm interested because I can pause it and go to the bathroom because Avengers Endgame when
Oh
that
man,
came
yeah.
out, that was like waiting for the last of the credits to go, like, okay, the lights are up, the projector's off, I'm about to explode. Like I was just getting to the final, like this is the only oh, I think this is the longest I could sit without going to the bathroom after drinking, a half gallon of soda and eating, 4 pounds of fucking popcorn. Um, and I
Yeah.
had conditioned my body and bladder to be able to do that. Nowadays, after a pandemic, man, I can't sit through a 30-minute TV show without having to go to the bathroom 3 times because I'm just sitting here drinking water or coffee, and then, well, you know what? Let's just pause this, and I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
But I've heard that this movie, The Batman, is phenomenal. So,
I'm
and
looking
and
forward
it
to seeing it.
actually, everything I've heard, and actually I will say I did cheat a little bit. I did watch the deleted scene. They released a deleted scene because there was a new Joker in it that I wanted to see. I had
Nice.
to see. Joker's one of my favorite Batman villains, and I had to see what they did and how this new character
They're
or
they're
new
always
actor played him.
they're always reinventing the Joker, and I know like there's been a lot of criticism over some of the Jokers that have happened.
Yeah. Well,
I loved the Joker movie, the one with Joaquin Phoenix. I thought that
yeah,
was
that was
awesome.
fantastic.
I did not like the Jared Leto Joker. I wasn't a fan of the Jared Leto Joker.
What's going on with him? Like,
I don't
he
know.
was not a good Joker.
Yeah.
Like, even in the Zack Snyder okay, wait. The Zack Snyder Justice League, I'll tell you right now, his Joker was actually pretty good in. I
Was
enjoyed
it?
that
Okay.
version of him.
I did not see that movie.
Okay, that one definitely that one they did right because the original Justice League, I think they only used like 15 minutes of Zack Snyder's footage in it. And Zack Snyder's Justice League is like 4 hours long, but it's cut up into like 7 or 8 segments.
I didn't
So
see
you
that.
can like,
Yeah.
you can watch first segment and come back to it a day or two later. But the Joker they had in that I felt was a little bit better. But the Jared Leto Joker was fucking terrible. And then I've heard so many just abhorrent reviews of the Morbius film that he just came out with, which
Yeah,
sucks because Morbius is a great Marvel character, great superhero,
I
and I've
know.
heard it's garbage.
They need. Yeah, I'm, and many people will be disappointed by this. Sorry, Maddie. I know Maddie really likes Jared Leto, but like,
Yeah.
I'm just not a fan. I mean, I know like he actually got like rave reviews for doing House of Gucci
Yeah.
recently, and he's been playing all these roles where he's almost unrecognizable,
Well, and I
which
also
is
want to say
interesting.
somewhere I read he's got like a cult going on right now, or he's leading a
Yeah,
cult or something, which is
there's
weird.
there's something going on with this guy. You can tell when you look at him. You know when you see like footage of a cult leader, and they like you
They have
almost like you look
like a
at
dead
them,
eye.
and they have this like almost like swirly eyes where you're just like
Yeah.
drawn in like a tractor beam, and you don't know
Yeah.
what he's got this thing going on, like cult leader esque, and I can't put my finger on it, but
It's weird. When
yeah,
was the last time we had a 30 Seconds to Mars album? Because honestly, 30 Seconds to Mars is fucking fantastic. I love that band. But
yeah. I mean, their early stuff is really good, and I can't dog on him too bad. I will say this: his early stuff, I did like the stuff that he did, like the Darren Aronofsky stuff,
right,
like Requiem for a Dream and stuff like
right,
that.
yeah,
Like the
yeah.
early stuff, I actually thought he was quite brilliant. I think where it went sideways for me is just like this really just not good Joker that he did.
Yeah, the Joker was fucking terrible.
But
But the new
anyways,
Batman, I'm excited to watch. Like
yeah.
I've heard very good things about it. I can't remember who I was listening to, but they were ranking their favorite Batman actors,
Oh
and
yeah,
one of the guys put Bat, what,
Pat Bat,
fucking
nice.
Twilight, whatever you want to call it. They put him at number 2 because
Oh
it wasn't necessarily like a lot of people are going to say Christian Bale was the best Batman. He was a great Batman. I'll give him that. And the
yeah,
stories were interesting to me, mostly because um it wasn't so much of a superhero movie as it was a realistic movie about a guy who had a fuckload of money who ended up having some stuff happen to him and he became a vigilante and
right, right. It was
it
more of
was
the realistic modern take on
yeah, you
what
could
would
almost
happen if
you
a
know
guy today that had this much money and influence
right.
and power had access to all these cool gadgets and shit.
I feel like that's what would have happened if something happened to Elon Musk. He would have become Batman, which would have
Yeah,
been cool.
yeah. That would have been at least to see. Like, it would probably be short lived, but
Right.
but like for like
3, 4
10 minutes.
years,
Well,
I
yeah,
give him 3, 4 years before he does some really bad shit. But even still, like it was more realistic. The the Catwoman, Anne Hathaway was not Catwoman, she was a cat burglar. And I mean, the only one that was kind of uh I mean, in my mind, the only character in that whole trilogy that was somewhat unrealistic was Bane.
yeah. Bane,
But
it kind of got a little crazy there.
yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean, you look at Ra's al Ghul, you look
yeah.
at even the Scarecrow. He was basically using hallucinogenics on people to make them see crazy shit and was
Right,
fucking with them. So that made sense. It wasn't like he's using this mystical gas, and it's like,
right.
no, he's just making them trip balls. And
It could feasibly happen. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And then, the second one with the Joker, you just had sociopath that was fully off his rocker
Right.
who was always a step or two ahead of everybody because he had planned it for decades. And it makes sense because
That
that's
could
half
actually
the
limit
population
people.
at this point.
I just want to watch the world burn. Yeah.
Just want to watch the world burn. And
um,
here we go.
but yeah, the but I will say overall that series, the Chris Nolan trilogy, is probably the strongest string of movies story
Right.
wise.
Yeah.
I mean, I love what Tim Burton did.
Yeah, well, that's
He's
classic.
film noir, a lot of dialogue, a lot of
But that was more comic book esque, where it was
very comic
the
book-esque.
architecture and the
Yeah,
visuals were more of a comic book nature.
yeah.
And then, what was the
Joel
next?
Joel Schumacher, those movies.
Yeah,
The, Batman and Robin
you
and,
mean Nipples?
yeah, Nipples Batman.
Nipples Batman?
Just, like, it's one of those things where those are clearly awful movies. You
Right.
know, they focused, I think, on putting stars in there. You had
They wanted the big name.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey and
Uma
Chris
Thurman.
O'Donnell and Uma
Yeah.
Thurman and
Alicia Silverstone. Yeah, we can George
and
Clooney, Val
George.
Kilmer. Yeah.
They just, it was all about the stars. But there's like this small part of me that's like a little nostalgic for that time
Oh, for sure.
because it was like that 90s era where like we were kids. And I
Yeah.
remember getting the Batman Happy Meal
Yeah, dude.
and getting the glasses, like the glass that
Yeah, the
came with like
glasses. I
the
have a Riddler
commemorative.
coffee cup still from when Jim Carrey was the Riddler. I still have one in
Nice.
my house right now.
Like,
But those, again, those were still trying to be comic book-esque, and like
yeah,
you said, they were getting the big name, so they're trying to draw in more. Because the first Batman really didn't have, like 5 large named characters. It had Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholas, wow, can't talk,
Nicholson,
and
yeah.
then, they didn't have the star power
Yeah.
that, like, the later on versions did, and that's
And
fine,
I just feel
but
like they treated them differently too. They were
yeah.
clearly going for the more campy. Like they knew at the time, like this isn't the most serious thing you're ever gonna, you know, like they gave Schwarzenegger like tons of taglines like
Chill.
chill, chill out, name is freeze, learn it well, for to be the chillin' sound of your doom. And just all kinds of there.
Yeah,
I went on IMDb the other day and like you can look at like tagline quotes and I just looked down through all
yeah,
those. I'm like, man, there was some
there are some bad one-liners
just
in those
bad
movies.
one-liners. They knew what they were doing, but
So kinda going back to Moon Knight, though, like, again, it's one of those things that they I think a lot of people were anticipating the typical, because I know Eternals got a lot of hell because it wasn't necessarily like, Avengers Endgame or Captain Marvel. Like, it was more story driven than it was violence driven.
yeah,
And I actually liked the Eternals. I thought it was a really good movie because it didn't have as much action in it. It actually had story and people trying to kind of find themselves, these beings that have lived on the earth for hundreds of thousands of years, and
yeah,
they're just here. Yeah, they didn't help when the blip happened, you know, but then Moon Knight's kind of doing the same thing. The first episode, it doesn't really have all that much in the way, like, it does have your typical, like, oh, there's a fight scene, oh, there's another fight scene, but it's not like every 5 minutes. Like, you have a decent story arc, and again, for me, I'm excited to see what they do. Khonshu, the god
yeah.
that Moon Knight serves, the voice is amazing,
Nice.
and I love how they're portraying, Mark Spector's, different identities, where he has, a voice, not to give too much away, but he has a voice of, the voice of Khonshu coming through, and he goes, "Oh, great, the idiot's in control again." And he's like looking around, like freaking out, like, who's saying that? Like, he's all scared about it. And then the guy's like, "Run, you idiot." And he starts running. He's like, "Why am I running?" And he's like, "Because if you stop, they'll kill you." And I thought they did it really well. I'm a huge,
Nice.
huge fan of Moon Knight, and I'm excited for this series. I'm also, from all the preview stuff that they've done, I'm really excited to see Mr. Knight, which is another alter ego of Moon Knight. So you have Moon Knight, Mr. Knight, you have Mark Spector, you have Steve Grant. I mean, the only thing I haven't seen, and I'm kind of, as a hardcore Moon Knight fan, I haven't seen Frenchie. And if you're a Moon Knight fan, you know who Frenchie is. So, you know, but
Yep.
there's no mention of him at all so far. And that breaks my heart.
Well, it's early, and who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
but like we kind of started this tangent, I think
Tangent.
tangent. Kind of how we started this is like how spoiled are we? We have access
Right.
to like all these. Did you ever think that they would get to a Moon Knight series? I mean,
No.
like, we were lucky for, Superman and
Right.
Batman and, to get the early, the X-Men movies that came out, even, the Wolverine and like all like the
Right.
progression of like with the A-list characters in the sense of like the ones that sell a ton of comic books.
Yeah.
But then when you get to indie labels and you get to, and I know that Moon Knight is Marvel, but
Yes. But
probably
he's not a well-known Marvel
not a
character.
well-known character. So um
I
it's
mean,
cool that
think
we're
uh,
in the metaverse enough with,
right.
like the
Well, the
Marvel.
Eternals. Who the fuck read those comic books? I didn't even know about them
Yeah.
until they came out with a movie, and I went back and kinda did some, digging and some research, and I read a few comic books, and I was like, "Oh, this is kinda cool."
Yeah.
But, like, I never knew like, I knew about the Guardians of the Galaxy. I was like, "Who doesn't know about a talking raccoon that has a tree for a friend?"
Right.
Like,
But
I knew
still
about that.
even that was a stretch at the time, like
Yeah.
when you were when Iron Man came out, it was still a stretch to think that there would be, or actually Iron Man wasn't all that popular of a
Yeah.
Marvel character when that came out. So that one kind of opened the door for, I think,
He's
a lot of
still
these,
I wanna say he's still not the most famous Avenger that they've ever had. Because if you the Avengers that I mean, we've gone way off of music now,
yeah,
and
it's
and
all
and
good.
thank you for if you're still listening, we appreciate you guys, but, um, the Avengers are such a large team, and going back through the history of those comic books, people don't remember, the hardcore fans remember, like, Wolverine, Spider-Man, they were Avengers.
Right.
Like, there were multiple different versions and multiple different groups that were considered the Avengers. There was the West Coast Avengers, the East Coast Avengers. There was like the Dark Avenger. There's so many different versions, and people don't remember that.
Yeah.
And so they're just and now, unfortunately, this world we live in, the Avengers are Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow. There's that bow and arrow guy, that's what I hear all the time. It's the bow and arrow it's
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye, come on, you fucking dick. And there's, but Vision was in the Avengers long before, I wanna say, friggin' the Hulk was, like, in the comic books, and he
Oh yeah.
became a somewhat major player later on, but he's already dead. Like, they've already killed him off and all this stuff, and that, sucks.
Yeah.
But, you know, I I I'm interested to see what they're gonna do with the Marvel universe now that they've really done their 10-year gamut or 15 years, whatever it was, to get from Iron Man to Endgame, and now, like, I know the Blade's coming out, the Eternals post-credit scene had a Blade nod, so that's interesting. It also had a Black Knight nod, which is cool.
Yeah.
Um, I'm interested to see what they do with the Blade series. I mean, Captain Marvel, really? Like, they
I
gave her one good movie.
I actually think that some of the the deeper characters that aren't as popular that are getting movies are going to be the interesting movies moving forward, because I got to say the new Thor, the new Doctor Strange,
Yeah.
a couple of the ones that are coming out, I was like cringing a little bit cuz like they they seem like they're getting their, and again, how spoiled are we? But like, you know, I was like, I don't really know if I want a fourth Thor movie. I really don't know if I want to, you know what
So
I
the
mean?
Thor, yeah, I could give or
Like,
take the Thor, but the Doctor Strange one, I definitely want it because
I
my
mean,
my
I do
opinion
love
on that,
Doctor Strange, but
I
yeah.
like Doctor Strange, but it is a Sam Raimi film.
Oh, okay. So that, and
Oh,
that's, I
and
love Sam
I've read
Raimi.
a
Yeah.
lot of, like, people that have talked about um they've previewed it already and stuff like that, and they've watched some stuff about it, and they're saying it's more horror and oriented, which it's Sam Raimi, so that makes sense because
Makes a lot of sense.
Evil Dead, that whole series, and
Yeah.
everything else he did do the original Spider-Man
I was
movie,
gonna say he did
but
that
it wasn't
movie
as
too.
horror. It was more of that campy. So it was definitely still in the vein of Army of Darkness. It just wasn't the scary part of Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
It was still campy.
But
But
Bruce
this one
Campbell
I've
still
heard,
making a small appearance. Yeah.
yeah. So I've heard that this new Doctor Strange movie is more horror oriented, and especially with Sam Raimi leading it, I think it's going to be an absolute friggin'
Oh,
just amazing film.
okay, I'm in on that one then.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like I think they might be overstaying their welcome with some of these franchises if they
Yeah.
don't really still continue to like please keep John Favreau involved. Please keep
Absolutely.
some of the really awesome writers, producers involved because I feel like
Kevin Feige's doing a great job producing everything.
I don't want to get to the point where we're like, what happened with like sequels back in like the 80s and 90s where it was like
Yeah.
straight to video and it
Straight
was
to
and
VHS.
they wouldn't even promote it. You would just
Yeah.
see it show up in the movie store and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like,
When did this come out?
like friggin' like
Well, and
Wolverine in space, like what? Like,
yeah.
you're just like
What? I don't remember this. Well, and I mean, there's some other movie franchises that I could go on about that, but
yeah,
honestly, I think with Marvel, I think what the big thing Marvel needs to do is Marvel needs to get the rights back to all of their characters.
yes.
Marvel,
Yeah,
like
not
Sony,
Sony Searchlight.
Sony needs to give up
Yeah.
the rights to their because I guarantee Marvel could have done. I mean, the Venom movies were good;
Yeah.
they weren't great. And that breaks my heart because Venom is one of my favorite characters, but Carnage, the
Yeah.
second fucking Venom movie, it was garbage. Like I
That
liked it
sucks.
because it's and
And I
again,
know that hurts for you to say because
yeah,
like he's one of your favorite characters, it's like
I'm also the same guy who likes the Green Lantern movie, and that thing was
yeah.
even more hot garbage than anything else. Like the Green Lantern movie
Yeah.
is fucking terrible.
We still have yet to get like a really good Fantastic Four movie. I will say,
Yep.
I do like some of the X-Men stuff, but like
Yeah,
in
that stuff's not bad.
Wolverine, especially the last one was pretty damn good.
Logan, yeah.
Logan was great. But overall, like I would
I'll be
love to
on.
see
Yeah.
an X-Men movie that was a Marvel,
Well, and see, Sony, the deal that Sony did with Marvel for Spider-Man, and the fact that Marvel still is like heavily in that contract and that character development,
yeah,
all three, and that was the other movie or thing I've watched recently was the new Spider-Man No Way Home movie. Honestly, that was fucking amazing. That was one of the
nice.
best movies I've ever seen. It had every emotion you get anger, you get sadness, you get happiness, you get frustration and confusion, and you get it all. And seeing Tobey Maguire, spoilers, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen it, then fucking get on it. But
I
Tobey
have
Maguire
I
come
haven't
back.
seen it.
Okay, well,
I've not
Tobey
seen it.
Maguire comes back as Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield comes back as his Spider-Man.
So okay, I did that was a spoiler that's been out there because yeah, I
Right.
saw that they recreated the meme
The meme, the
scene.
pointing, yeah.
Yeah,
But having the possibility of the multiverse, the Spider-Verse, because they've already done Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, that animated movie, and that was amazing.
which is
That was
pretty cool.
fantastic.
Yeah, that was pretty
The
dope.
the art, the visualization, the music was good, and it was a good story. I think they seriously have great opportunity if Sony can keep doing what they're doing with Spider-Man, but do it for the other characters. If they want to keep these characters, I mean,
Do them
they
justice.
could,
Yeah.
yeah, they could do so good. But like I've heard this Morbius movie, like Rotten Tomatoes, I think it has like a 12.
Ugh.
And that's bad. Like
Damn.
even I think Green Lantern has like a 25 or 30, and that's fucking horrible.
Yeah.
And that's definitely coming from somebody who has more Green Lantern power rings than I would say most of our listening audience. Um, and it's shit. It's a terrible movie. And
Then
like the
4 out of
Venom,
5 dentists.
yeah,
Nice.
the Venom, Let There Be Carnage was bad, and that's coming from a
Sucks.
guy who loves Carnage. Like that's my favorite,
Yeah.
villain. Period. It doesn't, yeah, but the Moon Knight, going back to that, honestly, I think people need to give it a chance. It's also a character that, like you said, it's not a mainstream character. These mainstream, yeah, we know Wolverine, we know, Cyclops,
Yeah.
Iron Man and Captain America. We get that. But let us oddballs that, you know, I didn't really like the Avengers per se. I read the comic books and I'm a fan, but I'm not like absolutely the Avengers. Like that's my no, man. Like
Yeah. No,
I'm
I
I'm
I always love the smaller, like, time stuff or, like, the off the beaten path stuff,
yeah, the weird shit.
like, I read Sandman, Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Oh my god. I would be so psyched if someday they did,
Th-
like, a
They do have an
Sandman.
audiobook
Do they?
with James McAvoy.
That's cool. That's
I've
cool.
heard it's unbelievably stunning.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a
I haven't had a chance to listen to it.
huge Sandman fan. I
Yeah.
read all that stuff, and even the overture that came out a few years ago, which was like there
Mhm.
was like 20 years in between the last one and
I
this
think
most recent one.
Kara's a big Sandman comic fan as well.
And then, all the offshoots, death,
Yep.
and delirium and all of
But see, those are
the endlesses, they call them endlesses, but
right. I
yeah.
think that's the more hardcore comic fans like you and I. Like I'm when they announced Moon Knight and they announced the actors for it, I got stupid giddy. I literally have a giant fucking hardcover compendium of all the Werewolf by Night comic books. It's one giant book. I
Yeah,
literally have that, and that was the first appearance. It's Werewolf by Night number 32. I
nice.
mean, come on, how nerdy can you get when you can name the comic book the character was first appearing in? But that was
Absolutely.
Moon Knight's first appearance, and he basically was this guy who was fighting a werewolf. Like
Yep.
he was like this creature of the night, this beast, this demon. Like I'm gonna kill it. And then a few years later, they came out with the Moon Knight series, and I actually still collect Moon Knight comic books, and have been for years. And he's literally one of my favorite. He's probably my favorite hero, anti-hero, whatever you want to call him. Like I love Deadpool. Deadpool's fun, but Deadpool's a dickhead, and that's
Yeah.
why I like him. Moon Knight is this character who's got so many mental health issues, and I think that's what drew me to the character is he has mental health issues, and that was, I feel like, one of Marvel's real first forays into like true crazy amounts of real mental health issues was Moon Knight, because he
Yeah.
literally does have multiple personalities. He will lose days, weeks, months, years because this personality will take over, and he just he shut down. He was a mercenary who found an ancient Egyptian relic and became the Fist of Khonshu. I don't know if I ever say that right. That's how I say it. It's how I've read that in the comic books for fucking decades.
Yeah.
Um, but he his mind fractured and he has multiple personalities. And if you watch the TV show, you'll see like when a different personality takes over. It's
The
kind of
moment.
neat,
Yeah.
but it starts to talk about I feel like they're really talking and trying to shine light on dissociative identity disorder and try to help. Like if you have that, like there are people who can help and people will try to work with you and stuff like that. And Moon Knight is it's like certain characters that are deaf
Mm.
or they're LGBTQ plus,
Yeah.
they're
I do
it-
like that. They're showing it's funny because like obviously Marvel and even like as far back as like in the Stan Lee days when he was, at the helm and all the characters were coming from all of these concepts of bringing um, you know, I guess some of the the lesser talked about parts of society and issues like, drug abuse and
Yeah.
LGBTQ and all this have been happening in the comics for a long time.
Yeah.
Comics have been shining light on those things for a long time, and we're just now seeing some of that in the last maybe decade or less.
Yeah. A great
Really
um
come into the mainstream and entertainment.
yeah, a great
Um,
comic book to look at. It's back in the 70s. Okay, I'm going this far back. In the 70s, the Green Lantern and the Green Arrow were actually a team. They teamed up. It was Green Lantern, Green Arrow. They worked together. There's actually a comic book where they have to deal with heroin addiction and like illicit
yeah,
drugs, and
remember
it
some
was
of the
a
art for that
huge, yeah.
being incredible, like with the
It
yeah,
it was
yeah,
it was deep, and it was scary because mainstream media didn't talk about it, and music and movies didn't really talk about it, but this comic book for kids was like, "Hey, this guy is shooting up fucking heroin, and he's a junkie, and, like, let's deal with it," and they actually brought it to, you know, people's faces, and I think like, they just showed off as a couple weeks ago the trailer for Ms. Marvel, which is a character that not many people know, but she's been in the spotlight for, I want to say, 3, 4, maybe even 5 years. Comic books, movies, video
yeah.
games that, are not movies, like cartoons, excuse
Miss
me.
Marvel's been around for a long time.
She's
Yeah,
been around for a long time, but she's, kind of picked up some spotlight because I know
yeah,
there was a
absolutely.
Avengers video game that came out on like the PS3 or 4. The Xbox One has it because I bought it, and she's the main character of the story, and she's a Muslim.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, not
and
something
then
you see in,
yeah,
American comic books very often,
yeah.
I mean,
Well, a religion that isn't necessarily quote unquote popular in America, that Marvel's tackling it.
yeah,
Like, one of the first major black superheroes, I believe, I could be completely wrong. Luke Cage, Black Panther, they were
yeah,
black men. And they, it wasn't, a comic book strictly for, the African American people. It was a comic book for everybody. And they're like, yeah, he's a different color. So the fuck what? Like, who
right,
cares?
exactly, yeah, just definitely, breaking down a lot of
Yeah.
barriers and social, faux pas or
Injustices. Yeah.
injustices, I mean, and through comics, so and I know that, the industry as a whole has like Stan Lee will say, like, if you watch some of his earlier documentaries, that he actually in the early days he couldn't be proud to do what he did because if in the say in the 50s and 60s, it wasn't seen as a serious profession.
Right.
If you were a comic book artist, oh, you write the funny pages.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It was more of a
You're writing
newspaper
cartoons.
pulp cartoon thing for kids, and like if you were you know businessmen would scoff at such a profession, but
Yeah.
it became a more legitimized art form, I think, through
Well,
um you
not only
know
art form, but it's one of the most lucrative businesses out there.
well,
Comic
and that's
books
the thing,
and
yeah,
comic book movies right now make billions of dollars a year, and people, even still, I go to the comic book store just up the road from my house like once or twice a week, and there's always people in there. It's not like, going to the mall and you can't get in there, but there's, 3, 4, 5 people in there at a time every time I go. And it could be like 4 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon.
yeah,
There's people in there because they're
which is
like,
so
"Oh,
cool
my."
to see, and
Yeah,
especially in this whole other tangent, but like a physical book in 2022. I know that digital comics have existed for quite a long time now. You can buy
yeah.
any comic book digitally, but I think
No.
some of those things are like kind of keeping print alive in a way.
I have a huge comic book collection. We're gonna do a comic book episode, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen,
I
some
feel
point
like
soon.
what's happening now is all of our love for comics, and it's sort of this repressed subject that we've been hinting at for a long time. It's all pouring out into this episode, but
Yeah.
it de- but it deserves its own
It deserves its own spotlight.
spotlight. So we will do that in the future. But thanks for humoring us on
Yeah. Hey,
our
thanks for
comic talk.
listening.
Yeah.
Tell us what you think of Moon Knight and the Batmans and bat nipples and all that stuff. And actually, I think that's a good place. We're talking about movies and such. Let's get to the what the fuck question, Seth.
Okay.
Okay, you ready for this week? I know
I
it's
I'm always like, all right, yeah, we'll just we'll roll the dice, see where
this
they land.
this one's fairly, everyone has been asked this question at least 25,000 times in their life. I think it's honestly, I think it's one of those icebreaker questions that you ask when you join a company in your first meeting. They're like, "Well, let's get to know everyone better. Here's an icebreaker," and everyone has to answer it. But it's pretty easy. It's nothing too insane. Um, who would play you in a movie about your life?
Oh God, I've never been asked that.
Really? Okay, I've been asked this like
Yeah.
500 times in my lifetime, and my answer goes. It only goes to one person every time, and that's because growing up, I looked exactly like this person. I still get people once in a while say, "Oh yeah, I can definitely see it." And it's like, well, then that would be my person, because if they look like me, then we're all set and I don't have to worry too much about it. They would just have to figure out my mannerisms, the odd shit I do, the odd shit I've done in life, and it's Leonardo DiCaprio. Um,
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
when I was a lot younger, a lot of people said I looked exactly like him. A lot of people also said I looked exactly like the drummer of Cold Chamber, Michael Bug Cox.
Okay.
Um, and literally that was one of my nicknames in high school, was Buggy, because I looked exactly like him. And if you read any articles about Cold Chamber and them talking about stuff, like, he always used to get called Leo because he looked exactly like Leonardo DiCaprio. So that would be my choice, because people say we look like we could be related.
That's
So
interesting. Yeah, knowing you when you were younger, like I could see that facial profile a bit. That makes sense. I've had people say that, like, and then not for a while, not for like, quite a while, but like that I kind of like resembled Dean Kane a little bit. Um, like I wouldn't have him play me in a movie though, because like my only reference to him is the Dean Kane Superman,
right.
like,
Going back to
show,
comic
was like
books again.
going back to that, but I would say, like, it's weird, but like maybe like a Mark Ruffalo or something, because
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like I have a serious side that's like I've got, I'm glad, like, I work at an office. I have this other life where I feel like I have to be a thinker, be a um,
A
you know,
professional. Yep.
professional, but then also I'm in this crazy funk metal band, uh, you know, uh
Host of a
where I
podcast.
host of a
Yeah.
podcast and into a lot of geeky things, and I feel like somebody like a character actor, like a, Mark Ruffalo, maybe even like I'm not going to say Ed Norton, because I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but like I'm going to say like a Mark Ruffalo that like
I think that I can see that. Dude, I
that
can actually
has,
see that.
you know um the ability to, you know play the Hulk, but also he's in all these like kind of more serious films that actually are based on um, true stories.
Right.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of a cool. I would approve that if it came across my desk.
So the chum bucket biopic of
Yeah.
Trawl and our life stories. It'd be Mark Ruffalo, Leonardo DiCaprio. Geez, Gary. Who would play
Okay.
Gary?
Oh God.
Who would play Justin and Tom? Like, going back through the
Okay.
Trawl, like,
I said,
who would play
okay, so
those guys?
Gary, I'm gonna say, like, and he would be like, "Fuck you," but like Danny DeVito, just because I think it would be funny. It would be so hilarious because he's jovial, right?
Yeah.
He's got this
Okay.
jovial, and he's like guys. He's got this like way about his speech that like I
Yeah.
feel like Danny DeVito could nail it. And I'm not saying at all like you look like Danny DeVito.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that.
no. I just went with mine just because of the looks thing. So that it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be how you look. I mean, there's a lot of biopics that yeah, it's a close resemblance, or
But I
um,
mean, clearly you're like Danny DeVito is much older than Gary is,
yeah,
but like Justin, that's a
yeah.
tough
Who would
one.
play
I don't
Justin?
know. I have no idea.
And Tom. I mean,
Um,
we can't forget about Tom. Like, who would play Tom? Like the beginning.
yeah.
I mean, jeez. Can we get
T-
Jared Leto to play Justin?
that would be funny.
uh,
Tom, I mean, I think there's a lot of, Tom's a little younger than we are.
yeah,
And I think there's a lot of actors that kind of look like Tom, like
yeah.
that could, with a beard, could like resemble him pretty
Hmm.
well that are a little younger. Yeah, I'll have to think on that one. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
we'll think about that, and we'll let you all know when we figure it out. But, ladies and gentlemen, let us know who you would have play you in a movie about your life. Yeah, hit us up in the comments section. Make sure you go onto Spotify and answer the question on there. We will pin the answers. I'm doing it just so people can see what my answer is. If maybe they don't even listen to the episode, but they, or they listen to most of it, they didn't get to that part. I'm answering that question now and pinning it. So if you want to answer it, do it in the comment section. Do it on Spotify. We'd love to hear from you. Also, you can rate us on Spotify now just to give a little extra tidbit out there. So if you want to give us some 5 stars, we'd appreciate that. Yeah, man, that's all I got for this week. This was a great episode, just you and I. We got a lot of stuff, and we got to go on some tangents about comic book stuff.
Yeah, man, this was fun. Just kind of unexpected and fun to just like talk about some of the stuff that honestly I don't really talk to many people about this kind of thing. So this is awesome, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Thanks for
All right.
listening, everybody.
Yeah. Take care. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you guys for tuning into TrawlCast this week. If you like what you hear, we are available on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many, many more. So hit that subscribe button. As soon as a new episode drops, it will be there, ready, and waiting for you to hit play. We're also on YouTube. All you gotta do is go to youtube.com/TrawlPortlandME. We post music, videos, even the podcast there. Again, that's youtube.com/TrawlPortlandME. Want to find us on your favorite social media site? All you have to do is search for @TrawlBand. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, that's @TrawlBand. Would you like to send us a voice message? Maybe hear your voice on the podcast? All you gotta do is go to anchor.fm/TrawlCast. Have fun with it. We want to hear from you. Maybe you'll even get to hear your question or voice on the podcast. Want to get yourself a sweet sticker pack from Trawl and TrawlCast? All you gotta do is cast a line to us at trawlband@gmail.com. Make sure to include your name and mailing address and a question you'd like to hear us answer. That way, we can send you some sweet Trawl swag. For more information about Trawl and all things Trawl related, all you gotta do is go to www.trawlband.com. It's the website. We post everything there. Again, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of TrawlCast. We hope you enjoyed it. My name's Sean Matthews,
I'm Seth McClellan.
and this has been TrawlCast. We will see you next time.
Inside of those eyes, I see you there.